Hi guys, welcome to my shop. Let's talk about sawhorses. So, yeah, when I bought the house that I'm in now, some 20 years ago, I made myself this sawhorse. You can tell it's seen plenty of use in those 20 years. Fairly sturdy, 2x4 legs, 2x6 top, some plywood gussets and side plates. Now, it's sturdy, it'll hold up a ton of weight, but the problem is, you know, like most people, I got a small shop, you got to store these things. So about 5 years ago, Steve Ramsey at Woodworking For Mere Mortals, I'll put a link down below to his channel, he put up a video for a folding sawhorse. I thought that seemed like a pretty good idea, so I made my own version of that. And this is it right here. Again, 2x4 legs, folds up nice and compact. My version adds a couple of more solid joints here in the corners, lat joints. Again, pretty sturdy, will hold up a ton of weight. A couple of minor design issues with it, but it serves its purpose. So, and I got thinking about it, and really, most people don't need a sawhorse that's going to hold up 1,000 pounds. They need a sawhorse that will, you know, you can put a door over it, you can give it a paint job, you can do some cutting, maybe some plywood cutting. Probably don't need to, on a regular basis, hold up more than a couple hundred pounds. So, I came up with this design here. Fairly light duty, but for 99% of the stuff that I do, this is perfectly adequate. And I designed it with economy of materials. A lot of guys, they put up videos where, oh yeah, you can build this sawhorse out of scraps off the building project you're on. Well, I'm not a contractor, probably you aren't either. We don't have scraps. We need to build something like this, we're down to the home center to buy it. So, economy of materials, fairly important. So this uses 1x4 for the legs and the side pieces, and a small piece of plywood. Whoops, sorry. A small piece of plywood for the shelf. A couple of hinges here. I just happen to have these lying around. You may too. Otherwise, standard 3-inch butt hinge. And again, hinges here for the shelf. I had pieces of piano hinge, but again, some cheap butt hinges from the building center will do just fine there. So let's get at it. Let's build a couple. Okay, let's have a look at the prototype here. Each side needs 4 of these pieces here. Each one is 32 inches long. Okay, at the miter saw, I set up a stop at 32 inches because I'm doing repetitive cuts. For each sawhorse, I'm going to need 8 pieces, as I said, 32 inches long. So on the bottom of each one of the legs, we need to cut a 15-degree miter so that they'll sit flat on the floor. So back at the chop saw, I'll set the miter gauge to 15 degrees. And we'll cut a miter at the bottom of each one of these. And I'll leave the stop at the same position. Okay, now we can start on some assembly. So we want to take each one of the 4 legs and measure up 18 inches from the toe up to about the midpoint. So that's 18 inches from the long side of that bevel that we cut earlier. We'll do that on each of the 4 legs. So that 18-inch mark marks the top of the lower stretcher on each of the legs. So we're going to square this up and pre-drill for a couple screws on each side, and then glue and screw. Yeah, I'm using some construction adhesive here for no other reason than got a tube that's open and I want to use it up before it goes stale. Regular wood glue would work just as well here. And we're going to use some number 8 1.25 inch deck screws. Just check your square. Okay, now I've got the other 2 legs laid on top of the first 2 that we put together. I'm doing this so that if the first pair is just a little bit out of square, at least they'll be out of square the same amount. Just get them lined up, and then same again, we'll pre-drill, glue and screw. Okay, now's a good time to install the hinges. So what I like to do with these hinges is just mark their location by turning them to 90 degrees, flopping them over the top of the leg, and just put a pencil line at the bottom of the hinge. Do the same thing on both sides. Just like so. Just put a scrap under here. And again, we'll pre-drill. Get that hinge pretty much centered where we want it. And we'll install the screws. Now we'll do the same thing on the other side. We'll just make sure that things are lined up properly. That's good. Okay, now I'll flip it around and do the same thing on the other side. Now I'll install the hinges for the shelf. Now I'm using pieces of piano hinge here because that happens to be what I've got, but some butt hinges would work just as well. So I'll get lined up in place. Pre-drill for the screws. Get those first two screws in. Okay, now we can put the shelf in place. Now this shelf is 12 inches by 24 inches. It's cut to come out of a standard sheet of plywood. Now at your home center you can usually buy partial sheets. I think at the Orange Building Supply Center they call them handy panels. Anyway, you can get them typically 2 feet by 4 feet, which would give you 4 shelves. Okay, now we can install the top stretchers. Now, this is the side with the hinge for the shelf. And we'll put this top stretcher even with the tops of the legs. And we'll do the same as we did before. We'll pre-drill, glue, and screw. Okay, notice that with this stretcher here, it captures the shelf so it won't flop through. Okay, now we'll flip the assembly over. We'll put on the stretcher for the other side. Okay, so the stretcher on this side, we're going to set it up about 1 inch, not flush here with the ends of the legs, but up about 1 inch. That does a couple things for us. That puts this top edge of the stretcher up above these hinges. So if you happen to be cutting with a circular saw or something of the sort, you're less likely to hit metal. The other thing it does is, although it captures the shelf when it's in the closed position, when we open up the Sawhorse, it'll allow the shelf to fold down. So I'm just going to mark that off, and then it'll be the same as before, but pre-drill, glue, and screw. Okay, almost done. So what keeps this Sawhorse from spreading out too far when it's being set up is nothing more than a piece of cord running between the two lower stretchers. So just so you can judge the length of the cord you're going to need, when the Sawhorse is set up with a 30-degree included angle between the legs, you'll have about 18 inches from toe to toe down at the bottom. So I'll just drill a 1/4 inch hole through the two lower stretchers for that piece of cord. And now it's nothing but a matter of installing that piece of cord to the appropriate length. Okay, I'm just using a piece of 550 paracord, and you want a piece that's long enough so that from knot to knot it'll be 11 inches. So I've just tied a figure-of-8 knot in one end, and I'll feed it through. Flip it over and tie a figure-of-8 knot in the other end. And I've marked off that 11-inch point, so that needs to be the inside face of the knot. There we go. Okay, so here's our completed Sawhorse. Table folds up. Captured here. Nice and compact. Easy to set up. And pretty sturdy. No side to side. It'll take all the weight I'll ever put on it. Well, thanks for watching, and see you on the next one.